9 games into the Premier League season, and what have we been reminded of? Football is hard, and from an Arsenal perspective, this has been made apparent with Gabriel going down against Liverpool with what is hopefully just a minor knee issue, but a minute into the second half, and then, in true Gabriel fashion of course, battling on, flying into a block, before going down again. Now, at Gabriel's point of exit, Arsenal had just come off what I'm going to show in today's video as a really assured first half performance, and Gabriel joined Saliba, Odegaard, Calafiori, amongst others as absentees for the game, in what was already a bit of a makeshift Arsenal defensive setup. Yet, despite all this, I have never had more belief in this Arsenal team. Today, we're going to talk a bit about that and why Gabriel's slide down the byline, battling through injury, tells a much bigger picture, and why you should maintain confidence in this team and this manager and what they are trying to do this season and in the future. This team has thick skin. This is a quote that Mikel Arteta brought up himself after the North London derby over a month ago now, and it's something that's really stuck with me. Social media for an Arsenal fan, especially over the past few weeks, has felt nothing short of a whirlpool. One tweet potentially sucking you into a pit where frustration and unjustness lie. But we need thick skin as fans too. And that will help us remember that we are really, really good at football. The players know it, and there should be a level of trust, of course, mediated by perspective, and I'm going to try and give both sides of that in today's video, but also there should be a level of confidence that this season can still be something very special. Welcome back to the Harvey Gratian YouTube channel. I'm so glad you found us or are joining us once again. Let's start with analysing the 2-2 draw with Liverpool, and for the purposes of this video, we're going to intently focus on the first half. So let's start with how we nullified that Liverpool press and also consistently played through it. And this was the main reason why we exerted the level of control we had in the first half and limited Liverpool to what? The corner goal, the Merino error. Liverpool did not spend much time in our final third at all, but I digress. Let's focus on what we did. We found ourselves against another 4-2-4 mid-block. And remember the away match against Aston Villa? What was the key change at half-time we made to dismantle that mid-block? It was Odegaard's low swings, moving into that 3-3 shape, drawing Tielemans out from the integrity of the Villa pivot. Against Liverpool, that intent to pull and prise away the two pivot players from the centre was vital, but it came within a much more complex dismantling of their press this time. This was the general premise for our 4-2-2-2 setup. Raya splitting the centre-backs, Havertz stretching McAllister wide, Trossard remaining relatively central, Partey tighter and more connected at right-back, and Timber as the outball at left-back, and a pivot man, which was here in this example, Merino, just modulating his positioning slightly deeper in order to entice Mohammed Salah and give Timber more room for David Raya's clipped ball. Now, let's be real for a second. It helps massively to have a goalkeeper that can clip balls like this, like a quarterback, by David Raya. But 3 minutes into the game and we were already finding ways over that Liverpool front four, who are now an additional player in David Raya to contend with, unlike that back three that we had against Aston Villa, an Aston Villa team who jumped on whenever we knocked it to one of our wide centre-backs. But let's touch on the Saka goal that came quickly into the game. You can see how this Liverpool mid-block has become passive pretty quickly on in the game, and it was those pivoting pendulum movements that I've maintained in all my videos and said before the match Liverpool would struggle to contend with that gave us the breakthrough. Havertz comes low and Saka makes the most of his 1v1 against Robertson in behind, and look, this is just unstoppable superstar power, guys, and the level that Saka is playing at needs to be more universally recognised. There are not many guys out there, if any guys out there in the world at the moment, playing at the level that he is. And it's what we've come to expect as Arsenal fans. Saka guarantees you threat. He guarantees you that he will make the right decision every single time he gets the ball and will execute that decision 95% of the time. And on top of that, Saka knows he's the best now too. and that coy little shrug at the camera told us 1,000 words. But back to the detail. We've spoken about using the fullbacks as an out ball. It was Timber against Liverpool, but we've spoken a lot about this on the channel before. This is something we've come to expect in our fluid build-up, and it's a shame that without Jurrien Timber on his strong foot or Ben White at right back and no Calafiori at left back, we lack those real pushing forces that we've discussed before from fullback to double down on the space we really well manipulated for ourselves. But this did mean there were some really lovely other tactical details to get our teeth into. I'm going to start with Timber and Merino's rotations. Merino started next to Rice in the pivot from our goal kicks mainly, but here you see him interchanging with Timber, giving us that left-footed option wide to accelerate play and also narrowing Mohammed Salah's positioning, who follows Timber to allow Merino to be that out. As play progresses, we have so much space to play in down the sides of the Liverpool block, with our wingers pinning the fullbacks. Timber now darts high and rocks with Trossard, who measures deeper and allows us to progress it to Saka, who just does something silly and beats 2 or 3 players like he always seems to do. And in Mikel Merino, he gives us someone very happy to drop into these left back or left centre back zones, and I was extremely happy with the performance he put in against Liverpool. He looked like that seamless fit for our left centre mid role that I've talked about earlier. Here, he's rotated in this example with Timber yet again, with Partey tucking into midfield from right back to form this midfield 3, with Havertz essentially becoming that right back or that width option on the touchline on our right hand side. This is the dynamic we saw a lot against Liverpool whenever Partey was inside, and we can talk about Kai Havertz's role with Odegaard's absence in just a little bit, but the confidence that we grew with in that first half was exemplified by getting Partey inside more and more, and it showed the control we exerted on that ball. I want to focus now on the 15 minutes or so leading up to our second goal. We were really starting to have some fun at this point. This is the extreme fluidity that we're used to seeing now. Partey here is actually the deepest midfielder, with Rice and Trossard essentially as interiors and Havertz high and wide in like a right back berth. This is essentially a kind of 4-3-3, but look at the distances in the Liverpool press now. This is what's important. Trossard is allowed to float down completely unmarked in his false 90 role, and then he connects with Merino, who has gone high in that pocket instead of starting low next to Rice. Merino is found and swiftly progresses it to Martinelli, and we are so unlucky here. Martinelli gets to the byline, and it's inches away from Saka and Havertz getting on the end of it. Let's take a minute to just focus on Merino's support for Martinelli on that left-hand side, because it's more subtle than the careering in and out of holes that Calafiori gives you. But this is an example of Mikel Merino timing his underlap to perfection, not just for the sake of it, but to create the space for Gabriel Martinelli to come inside and cross to the back post. He has this whipped ball on lock, does Martinelli, and it's something I really want, and I'm excited to see more of from him, especially with here Kai Havertz as the target, who has a half chance. Let's move back to the fun we were having in the build-up now. Here again, very, very fluid. A back 3 with Rice alone in midfield. Trossard then floats down next to him. McAllister is late to react, and Trossard finds Merino, who has pulled himself to the side of this Liverpool block. Again, that easy progression down the sides. Merino finds Martinelli and underlaps him again, and this is where I want to see Martinelli. This is a better example of where he should hit the back post with 3 players lying in wait, and I think it's more about repetition than anything with Martinelli, if I'm honest. We recirculate though, and we go again, only this time with Partey in the lone pivot, Rice at left centre-back, Timber in the high pocket and Merino wide. At this point, we were in and out of shape so much, causing issues. We started to see this a lot too in the central third, a 3-2 with Rice and Partey alongside each other, and this spread of 3 ahead of them. Merino wide left, Havertz doing the same but on the right, and Trossard free in the central pocket. Look how split the Liverpool pivot are here, with neither of the centre-backs following Leandro Trossard. Partey now swings back into the back line, again baiting that Liverpool front 4, opening up a free pass into Trossard, who has so much time to turn and release Merino. And what comes of it is that contentious Konate challenge on Martinelli in the box, and a very good opening for Kai Havertz after. To finish this section, I'm going to talk about one more passage here. We formed that 3-3 shape just like the Aston Villa game, only now it's comprised differently. With Timber lower in left centre-back, Partey narrowing the Liverpool press, joining from right-back, Gravenberch now realising he is to jump and follow Merino. And remember last video, guys, I was speaking about how Arteta wants to sign, and his ultimate vision for Arsenal is a team of player managers. Merino knows he has a split second here, turns and releases Trossard, who bounces it into Martinelli, whose rotations with Trossard has given him his own separation from the Liverpool centre-backs. We progress it to the right hand side, we win the foul and we score from the free kick. Let's though now turn our attention to the future, because I won't hide from it, we've got work to do. 5 points off the pace, and let's be honest, I think we can all probably rightly feel that in another world we would not only have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 more wins this season, but City would have dropped more points than they have too. However, the reality is that they haven't. And it is on us now, I think, to keep the pace until we get a healthy squad back. And I think if we can get into January and past what looks, in terms of relative to our peers, a pretty good Christmas run, if we can get to January then still with the pace, we can be really optimistic. For now though, I want to talk about longer term takeaways from the Liverpool game, being kind and also constructive. I want to start with the press, because this was the first proper time and first proper glimpse we've had of a Rice-Merino duo in the 6 and left centre mid out of possession for us. Merino's job was to jump onto Ryan Gravenberch, who was shadowed out of it a lot of the time in Liverpool's possession by Kai Havertz, who essentially had this blocker role at the front of our press, whilst Trossard arced ahead of him. He arced his run to deny Liverpool that way and that access into their right hand side where Trent and Mo Salah of course lay, and instead tilt our press and force Liverpool towards their left hand side. The dilemma though for us on Sunday was, as Merino jumped, this would leave Curtis Jones free between the lines, meaning he and Gabriel had to communicate really effectively but also read the game to decide when Gabriel could back up Merino's jumps and move on to Curtis Jones like this, or when he had to stay in the back line and keep the +1 that we were trying to keep there, and that you need when you're playing a front 3 of Nunez, Salah, Diaz, these big, strong, aggressive, powerful runners. Merino and Gabriel did this superbly. Gabriel was out-dueling Nunez, and the one time in the whole game that Curtis Jones was found free, Merino showed his legs. He tracks back and wins the ball. And I think leaving players free between the lines, of course, as well, makes it so much easier when you have Declan Rice back in the number 6. You know my thoughts on Declan Rice's long-term role for this Arsenal team, and it was fantastic to see him in a role where he could show his coverage off. I think there's a time and a place for a more functional role for Declan Rice in a left centre mid, more situationally. But long-term, this guy is the Arsenal number 6, and we are lucky to have someone who can patrol these between-the-lines spaces so well, tracking Nunez in his movements or Curtis Jones' movements deeper, or Robertson if he gets in behind Bukayo Saka, whilst at the same time being able to back the press up and closing down Alexis McAllister in the Liverpool pivot. But above all, what the number 6 role does for Declan Rice, I think, is more mental. It gives him the knowledge that he is the man at the base, anchoring our team that we truly depend on. Lots of touches, connecting the team with carries, or being that quarterback from deep and spraying switches to our wingers, sweeping up in transition moments, or even adding those occasional moments of dynamic support for Saka on our right-hand side, like the prelude to the corner that Gabriel scored from at the Etihad. Next on the agenda, post-Liverpool, is Havertz's role. I think people are fairly pointing out that in this false 90 linking role that he actually has with Bukayo Saka at the moment, often creating those wide stacks and getting him away from dominating the centre as a proper centre forward. I think those concerns are fair enough, but I think it's a role that, especially when we're coming up against these 4-2-4 mid blocks, he does have to play, especially with Odegaard's absence and without a pushing force of White or Timber on the right flank. So I think it was more a double down of what he had to do on Sunday specifically against Liverpool. We know how well he guarantees us territory when he stays higher and we go long to him, but that was against Liverpool. It was not one of those Spurs away types of games, or it was not a game like Brighton at home where he was out there to bully, to stretch, to dominate the centre. But as we know, Kai Havertz's brain is a blessing for him. It allows him to float and move about like a false nine, whilst having the body of a true centre forward. But I hope this video has given you some much needed perspective. And it's a perspective that is really hard to keep a hold of at times in the flurry and the flux of the Premier League world of football, and especially how that's exacerbated by social media. But what I really want to consolidate in you all is that this title this season is still well and truly on. We need to maintain thick skin, like I said in the beginning, like the players. But there is also a pressing reality that I'm not going to shy away from, that we need to go on a run now. We need to make a couple of difficult fixtures now coming up, but also that key Christmas run. We need to make it count. I guess what I'm trying to say is that look at how you really feel about the team going into these types of games. I wasn't surprised about the first half superiority against Liverpool, despite the notable absentees. I wasn't surprised of how we played in the first half against Manchester City. I think, as a theme developing here, if there's anything you need to take away from this video, it's this. Officiating and the referees, of course, are messed up in this Premier League. But let's keep 11 men on. If we can, keep 11 men on the pitch, Arsenal. Yeah? It's easier said than done. But our performances, our actual performances on the pitch, in the multitude of contexts that we've come up against, should encourage you guys, not dissuade you guys. We are simply a top-class football team, and we have it within our power. Remember this, guys. We have it within our power to make this season one to remember. And as long as we still have that power within us, keep your thick skin, guys. But until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.